To you, you are watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime, channel 294 on DSTV, and I'm Wazanai Sansole. A lot has been happening in the world around us, and so we give you our headlines tonight. Mozambican President Daniel Chapo has arrived in the country ahead of the official opening of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair this Friday. It's the fourth day at the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, and we give you an insight into Vice President Kembo Mohadi's engagement with stakeholders to enhance intra-Africa trade. And in our Crime Watch, we give you the story of an armed robber who was slapped with a lengthy sentence after he once escaped from prison officers' custody, movie style. And in sport, Premiership newsboys Kwekwe United are pleading for financial assistance after finding the going tough in the top flight league. They have since been summoned by the PSL after failing to fulfill a fixture. Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo arrived at the Joshua Nkabogo Nkomo International Airport in Bulawayo this evening, where he is set to preside over the official opening of the 65th Zimbabwe International Trade Fair this Friday. President Chapo's plane touched down shortly after 7 p.m. and he was welcomed by a high-profile delegation led by Zimbabwe's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Professor Amon Murida, the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Judith Ncube, several ministers, service chiefs and senior government officials. President Chapo was escorted to the State House, where President Mnangagwa will host an exclusive state banquet in his honor. The event will be attended by cabinet ministers, diplomats, and business leaders, serving as a platform for discussions on enhancing bilateral cooperation in trade, investment, and regional security. President Emmerson Mnangagwa arrived in Bulawayo earlier today, where he was welcomed by the country's two vice presidents, Dr. Constantino Chiwenga and retired Colonel Mohadi. Also present were the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Judith Ncube, the Minister of Defense and Security, Opam Chinguri Kashiri, the Zimbabwean ambassador to Mozambique, Victor. Now, intra-African trade, currently a small fraction of overall African trade, is receiving increasing attention due to its potential for economic growth and development. The African Continental Free Trade Area aims to boost this intra-African trade by creating a single market for goods and services. However, challenges like infrastructure limitations and trust issues still hinder the continent from realizing the potential of intra-Africa trade. Vice President Kembo Mohadi gave a keynote address and highlighted how increased intra-African trade could change the continent's fortunes.
Speaking at the symposium, Vice President Kembo Mohadi said intra-African trade, while representing a significant opportunity for the continent, remains low, accounting for only a small percentage of its total trade. This low level of trade is a major impediment to economic growth and diversification in Africa.
Despite Africa's economic potential, intra-African trade remains low, accounting for less than 20% of total African exports, compared to over 60% in Europe and Asia. This imbalance limits Africa's ability to generate revenue internally and makes African industry vulnerable to external trade fluctuations.
Vice President Mohadi said dependence on external markets is one of the key challenges, as over 50% of Africa's imports and exports are tied to just 5 economies outside the continent, making the continent vulnerable to external shocks. He said non-tariff barriers such as complex customs procedures, cumbersome documentation, and unpredictable trade policies are a major obstacle to intra-African trade.
To boost African trade, we must work together, strengthen regional trade partnerships, develop logistic corridors that streamline commerce, and establish industrial clusters that facilitate production across borders. These measures, ladies and gentlemen, among others, eliminate barriers to Africa's trade resilience.
The vice president said Zimbabwe was in the process of reforming its regulatory frameworks to ensure that they were not barriers but served as bridges to facilitate domestic, regional, and continental trade.
The strength of Africa lies in these people. By investing in quality education, vocational training, and technology, we empower our youth to drive industrial and economic advancements. Africa is a home to a growing youthful population, one that holds enormous potential to shape the continent's economic transformation.
Speaking at the same meeting, Industry Minister Ngobizita Ndlovu highlighted the critical role of sustainable and innovative practices in unlocking Africa's economic potential. He said Zimbabwe was working on supporting the manufacturing sector to boost its contribution to the country's GDP and for the realization of export growth.
The efficiency of our transport and logistic infrastructure is critically important. Therefore, government is investing in upgrading and maintenance of road and rail networks to improve connectivity between production hubs and ports and facilitating the development of one-stop border ports to promote seamless movement of goods and people.
For ZTN Prime, I'm Andile Chuma in Bulawayo.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kembo Mohadi has urged young people to take a leading role for the country to achieve sustainable and inclusive development. He was speaking in an exclusive post-independence celebrations interview, highlighting the importance of youth to fully participate in national development.
Our generation freed Zimbabwe from the bond of colonialism. And if you ask me what I did for Zimbabwe, I'll tell you that I fought for the struggle and I liberated Zimbabwe. But if I ask you what you did for Zimbabwe, you will tell me nothing.
Indeed.
Because you did nothing.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we are going to look at is that we need to educate the young Zimbabweans. First and foremost, to recognize themselves as Zimbabweans. You recognize yourself as Zimbabweans. You recognize your culture, you respect your culture. You stop emulating the other cultures from elsewhere. Because your identity is that of being Zimbabwean. So you need to recognize that.
Vice President also said government has implemented a number of policies to support the youth in their mandate through Education 5.0 and the introduction of innovation hubs at tertiary institutions.
And then when you realize that you're actually Zimbabweans and you have got an obligation to further the ideals of the liberation struggle, and then we will be happy to bequeath the reins of power to you. Because as it is, you are just a mixed grill. We don't know whether you have got the Zimbabwe at heart or not. And so the education becomes an integral part in educating you, first of all, to know who you are. And then also to have that patriotism which drives you to further the ideals of the liberation struggle, as I've said. We did our bit.
On Wednesday, President Emmerson Mnangagwa swore in 14 new commissioners comprising of 8 members for the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and 6 commissioners for the Defense Forces Service Commission. So who are these commissioners and what roles are they expected to play? Our correspondent Safaras Bochiwe gives us brief profiles of some of the members, offering insight into the backgrounds and the impact they may have on their respective commissions.
According to Section 254 of the Zimbabwe Constitution, a chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and 8 other members are appointed by the President from a list of not fewer than 12 nominees. Some of the roles of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission include investigating and exposing cases of corruption in the public and private sector and to combat corruption, theft, misappropriation, abuse of power, and other improper conduct in the public and private sectors. And among those that were sworn in on Wednesday for that mandate include Kindness Paradza, a former Deputy Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services. He was a renowned journalist and later became a member of ZANU-PF, where he was the ruling party's Secretary for Administration for Mashonaland West Province. He later became a member of Parliament for Makonde. The other one is Zalera Hazunei Makari, a politician and also a former legislator of Epworth constituency under the ruling ZANU-PF. Dr. Obson Matunja, once appointed the Vice Chairperson of the National Competitiveness Commission, has an impressive academic background. This includes a Bachelor of Accountancy degree, an MBA in Business Administration from the University of Zimbabwe, and PhD in Management. Miss Betty Wenjeri comes in with a wealth of experience in finance and administration. She served as the Director of Finance and Administration at the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. Meme Rumbidzai Zwimba is from a legal background. A graduate from the University of Zimbabwe, Zwimba has been a practicing lawyer for over 10 years. She is also a registered conveyancer and notary public. Shelton Dube, Chido Madiwa, and Patrick Tendai Mukorera complete the list of the newly appointed ZAC commissioners. Also sworn in on Wednesday were commissioners in the Defence Force Service Commission. The functions of the commission include to fix and regulate conditions of service, including salaries, allowances, and other benefits of members of the Defence Forces, as well as to foster harmony and understanding between the Defence Forces and civilians. The Defence Forces Service Commission must be chaired by the chairperson of the Public Service Commission and a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 6 other members appointed by the President. That is according to Section 217 of the Zimbabwe Constitution. The commissioners include Ms. Patricia Sarah Bwerinofa, a non-executive director of the MMCZ board. Among her qualifications is a Master's in Education, CIS, and a National Diploma in Management Studies. She held a number of senior government positions and served as a board member in several private and public entities. Okay Mabena, with experience in transport and logistics, is another member. He worked for the United Nations and the Zimbabwe National Army. Pedimu Goba, Charles Cleopas Moronga Zombo, Mavis Gonde, Chiposhila Rose Mahere complete the list of the newly sworn-in commissioners for the Defence Force Services. The hope is for them to deliver on meaningful, tangible achievements to the benefit of the general citizenry. Tafaras Bochiwe for ZTN Prime.
We'll give you updates on how Catholics in Harare are honoring the late Pope Francis shortly.
Stuck on you. Ooh, obsessed with you. I'm obsessed.
With Showmax, your favorite characters now follow you anywhere. Download it today and watch the best in local, international, and everything in between.
And unoona kana zvinhu zvakadayoka zvinobva zvatinewe fofa kudai izvozvo final demand yandatumirwa nesitokadzo hanzi ndibhadhare chikwereti ndozvifambisa sei ndine urwere
wakachera iri yefinal demand unofanira kutobhadhara imba inotorwa
ndozvifambisa sei izvezvi kubhengi kunenge uchida unomirwa line pedzezvo kanzuro kuda umirwa line apa ndine urwere ndoita sei
era kutsvuka bedzi asi wakasara kudai
atanga
auzizive kuti akuchina zviya zvokunzi kwai kunomirirwa kuenda kumahofisi kuti unobhadhara kanzuro kanzuro yekuti unobhadhara izvozvi nemaplatforms akawanda ari paya through pay now unogona kubhadhara neEcocash, One Money, FBC Online, CBZ Touch kana kuti unogona kungoita iri bank transfer caps account yavo number ndakutoiziva nomusoro ndiyo yandoshandisa every month iyi caps 1003655 wapedza kudaro wakutoita kuindisa proof of payment paemail pa rtgs@hararicity.co.zw zvoga izvo wakagara ipapo pauri ipapo kumba kwako unogona kutongobhadhira kanzu hazvichamirigwi nguva unoenda kumaofisi
chibva watouya ubva watondiitira
utongobhadhira online
zvichiri zvokubhadhira chikwereti kubva wati neni kwati
Harare, tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports, fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Cotton farmers have implored stakeholders in the cotton industry to come up with a plan to clear the arrears owed to farmers before commencement of this year's selling season. And in an interview with ZTN Prime, Cotton Producers and Marketers Association National Chairperson Stuart Mbonderi said farmers feel cheated as lint has already been exported while they're yet to receive their dues. And payments to cotton farmers has been a major concern over the years.
We expect Kotico to pay the outstanding money owed to our farmers amounting to 6.5 million for the 22-2023 marketing season. It also includes, on top of that, the grade adjustments for this year, and including the zinc component, which was also supposed to be paid to our farmers. Kotco is almost through with that one. For this marketing season, we expect, farmers are expecting an attractive price. That's number one. Secondly, they are expecting to be paid on time, so that will prevent what has been happening over the years, where farmers are experiencing late payment. Secondly, we also need to be paid the grade adjustments on time as per statutory instrument.
Mbonderi, however, commended the authorities under the Presidential Cotton Scheme for a timeliest disbursement of inputs, saying this has positively contributed towards the production of a quality crop countrywide.
Kotico this year gave adequate inputs to our farmers, starting with the gold class, who were receiving 4 bags fertilizer and top dressing 2 bags, going downwards to the last farmer. This enabled farmers to have a better crop than any other year. When we went out with the Committee on Agriculture to meet our farmers, the average per hectare was about 3,000 tons per hectare. We also want to thank the President, because the Presidential Input Scheme inputs were delivered on time.
Now this evening, Catholics in Harare held a mass in honor of the late Pope Francis. Our reporter Sharon Munjenjema was part of the mass at the Harare Cathedral.
Harare's Catholic community has gathered at the cathedral in the central business district to pay their respects to the late Pope Francis with the Mass for the repose of his soul. The cathedral is filled with mourners who are reflecting on the impact of his legacy. The Mass started at 5 o'clock on the dot. Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Church in Zimbabwe, Father Robert Ndlovu, led the service.
But his words and his words remained with us, and they will echo for a long time to come. So in a way, we are not really mourning, but we are giving thanks to God for the servant Pope Francis that he has given to us as a church, but also to all of humanity.
Pope Francis was described as a generous man who spread the gospel of humanity. The Vatican ambassador to Zimbabwe says the church is trying to simplify the late Pope's funeral rituals as per his last request.
Therefore, we want to recall and celebrate the achievements of this extraordinary pontificate. But because of Pope Francis' request, as stated in his last will for the funeral rites, he simplified and focused on expressing the faith of the Church in the risen Lord.
Some congregants who attended the Mass said they will remember the late Pope for his good works.
Kwandiri inoreva kurangarira the life of Pope Francis. We had with him like zvinhu zvakanaka zvavaipreacha, mabasa akanaka avaita.
Pope Francis will be laid to rest in a funeral service this Saturday in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican, following a period of mourning and tributes from around the world. Shira Munjenjema for ZTN News in Harare.
Now that is an ongoing story which we will be following. In a world where youth is synonymous with love, Vuyai Pasipanojga's story stands out like a rare bloom in a desert. At 50, she walked down the aisle exuding radiance, confidence and pride as a maiden. ZTN Prime's Latwo Nyangu sat down with Vuyai and her husband Stanford at their residence in Rua to share their remarkable story.
Meet Vuyai, a devoted Christian from Berengwa. Born and raised in a family of 8, your story is one of hope and faith.
It was my pleasure to be in the family of Zaweja Forward in Faith. I learned a lot. I think this is the faith that has kept me this far.
Despite pressure from family and society, I kept a hope alive, believing in God's plan.
I was saying if it's late, maybe 40 years or not 50.
She waited for Mr. Right, and her patience paid off miraculously.
To be honest, they were coming, but some of them I would just hear when they've already gone.
How she met her husband remains a miracle to everyone who knows her from their church in Rua.
So a fellow elder who is Sekuru to Mr. Madondo approached me.
In Zayoja, couples go through the SOFA conference before they propose.
I see church here, unoita zvaunoda. In Zayoja Forward in Faith, you don't do what you feel like doing. You are guided.
The couple met last year, and it took them just 6 months to get married. Uyai's prayer for a godly man was answered.
We met in October 2024. So got October, November, December, January, February, March, April.
Uyai's advice to other girls: remain steadfast and look to God.
But my advice is, it's good to trust God. It's good to wait upon the Lord.
For Stanford Madondo, Uyai is a God-given wife. He stayed single after his first wife's passing.
It was a little bit hard for me, since, I had previously married, my wife had passed away. I was somebody who was staying in a house.
Stanford is overjoyed to have married a virgin, something he described as a rare find in today's world.
I ask myself, God, is this what you had prepared for me for all these past years?
The marriage was blessed by Stanford's 88-year-old mother, Hilda.
Zvakaga zviri kupiko zvese izvozvo zvatazoona nhasi izvi, Mwari wakanaka.
Stanford's nephew, Tendai Madan, played a key role in the lobola and wedding process.
Ndakazofamba nagogo tienda kumachechi kuzayoja tichiannounce. Vanhu vese vaifara, vanhu vaita kufara kunge marriage yachina ndiye kumba kwavo.
Uya's best friend, Evelyn Mfurashanga, calls the marriage a miracle and God's answer.
We are so much convinced that there is a God who answers. Saka inini ndakava nekufara kwakanyanya as a friend yauya pasi panodya kuwitnessa this is spectacular event.
Above all, this marriage could not have been a success without the critical role played by Elder Masendu.
Takabatiswa zvatatisati tamboona, takaona zvatatisati tambobata, tikati Mwari chiitai kuda kwenyu kuoneke. Kusvika tatonzwa kuti muchato wakuda kuitwa, that was the surprise kwandiri.
He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Uyai and Stand for the Story is a testament to the power of connection and commitment, inspiring a generation to believe in true love. Latuo Nyango for ZTN Prime in Harare.
Now, from that story, we now give you an update on what's happening at the Beitbridge border post. The South African Border Management Authority, BMA, has arrested 2 of its officials on corruption charges for allegedly accepting a bribe to allow an overloaded vehicle with undocumented migrants to pass through the Beitbridge port of entry. The vehicle, a white Mercedes-Benz taxi, was intercepted after the officials allegedly received a bribe from a human smuggler. And 13 passengers on board held valid travel documents, while 5 were found to be undocumented. The arrests come at a time when border authorities have intensified their efforts to combat corruption, deploying advanced technological surveillance.
In a concerted effort to root out corruption and strengthen the integrity of South Africa's ports of entry operations, the Border Management Authority conducted a successful intelligence-driven operations at the Beitbridge port of entry during the Easter period. The operation led to the arrest of 2 immigration officials, 5 undocumented foreign nationals, 2 suspected facilitators involved in the alleged unlawful entry of persons into the Republic and contravention of the Immigration Act. The operation, executed on Tuesday, 22 April, was led by 2 executive members of the BMA following extensive movement monitoring and the deployment of advanced technological surveillance at the port.
Up next is our Crime and Courts update with Kimberly Chimbalanga, including a story on a prison escapee that has received a 22-year sentence.
A Harare man from Hopley has been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment by a Harare magistrate after he indecently assaulted his 60-year-old neighbor. The accused is said to have followed the 60-year-old who had fallen asleep soon after a drinking spree and sexually abused him. Moving on, a Harare man, Luke Zinyengere, who fled from prison custody and hijacked a motor vehicle, has been sentenced to an effective 22 years imprisonment. The court ruled that the crime was committed in a well-planned and sophisticated manner. The circumstances of the 2 offenses carry a maximum sentence. The only mitigating factor is that he is a family man and is a first-time offender, but he started on a deep end. The court also ruled that the crime was executed in a movie style and it traumatized a lot of people, including court officials. Magistrate Letwin Rhodzi also stated that the court will settle for the highest penalty, stating that escaping from lawful custody shows that the accused cannot be rehabilitated in the near future and the society must be protected. Still at the courts, a Harare man, Blessing Chinduru, has been charged with fraud after he duped one Junaid Alana in a grocery botched deal. Allegations are that Chinduru misrepresented to the complainant that he could help her import groceries from South Africa. The complainant is said to have given the accused $500,000 to import and deliver the groceries. He is said to have failed to deliver the groceries and repaid $297,182 and never returned the remaining $202,818. He was granted $300 United States bail and will return to court on 3 June. For ZTN Prime, I'm Kimberly Chimbalanga in Harare.
Now continuing with court updates, a 52-year-old Nigerian national, Kelechi Godwin, has appeared before the Bulawayo Magistrates Court facing 4 counts of fraud linked to forged spousal documents used to secure Zimbabwean residency permits. The state alleged that between 2009 and 2014, Godwin fraudulently submitted letters claiming to be from his wife, Patience Godwin. Investigations later revealed that Patience had been living outside of Zimbabwe since 2008. And now these actions misled immigration officials and led to the unlawful issuance of multiple residence permits. As part of his bail conditions, he was ordered to pay $400, reside at his given address, avoid any contact with any witnesses, and report twice weekly at Bulawayo Central Police Station. Now, when Newsplus returns, we'll give you further updates on what's happening in the world around us.
It's an experience and a half.
What are we looking at? Thank you guys for joining us for this unforgettable night.
Paw Patrol is on a roll.
It's Max Verstappen in the lead. The megastar is here.
Absolutely sensational.
Let's go!
It was such a success.
The rest is history.
Get unbelievable entertainment that is unbelievably easy to own. Get and stay connected to DSTV.
In a land where traditions run deep, where the soil holds the secrets of generations, and where dreams are sown alongside seeds, a new generation emerges. Welcome to Young Seeds. Get ready to embark on a journey like no other as we shine a spotlight on the dynamic and inspiring young farmers in the heartland of Zimbabwe.
I want to do it because plants will die, plants will get infected by diseases.
I tried to do mixed farming, that is also putting tomatoes. I have half a hectare of tomatoes.
Every 40 days it has to be giving birth.
Produce a good quality fruit size. Well, calves are kept in different pens, basically so that they don't spread diseases to each other.
My name is Tarios Gauke. I'm a rabbit farmer.
These young farmers are revolutionizing traditional practices, embracing technology, and finding sustainable solutions that will shape the future of agriculture. So, let's get our hands dirty.
Thank you very much for staying tuned to Newsplus with me, Wadzanai Sansole. Now, in the first half of this bulletin, we gave you a story on how the Mozambican president, Daniel Chapo, has just arrived in the country ahead of the ZITF. And then VP Mohadi advocates for Intertrade Africa. And then a prison escapee was jailed for 22 years. And later on in the bulletin, we'll give you an update on what's happening with Kwekwe United. Now, the Kenyan President William Ruto, who is on a state visit to China, has emphasized the long-standing friendship, frequent exchanges, and practical cooperation between the two countries, expressing hope that his visit would inject new momentum into bilateral ties.
I am looking forward to building on what already exists, to build greater understanding between our two peoples, and ensuring that we take this into the future. Along that journey, we have achieved many things together. Kenya is a member of the Belt and Road initiative, and as a result, we have the 600-kilometer railway from Mombasa through Nairobi to Naivasha. We have the Lamu port that has been built in partnership with Kenya and China. And of course, we have the Mombasa oil terminal that was also been built by the partnership between our two countries, alongside many other projects, the Nairobi Expressway, and many road projects that have been undertaken in Kenya, signifying the robust relationship between our two countries.
We now take a look at what's happening in the education sector in Botswana, where their president, Duma Boko, has said that they will be deploying a school every month until they have built 50 schools that provide meals for learners and are equipped with tablets.
This school will have about 300 learners. We'll have preschool fully catered for, and we'll have the rest of the classes. This school is modeled, as I say, differently. We will have smart boards there. We will provide the learners at these schools with a tablet which will be replaced every 2 years. That's part of the program. And we will ensure that we run a feeding program where these kids will eat 2 healthy meals during the school time.
And still on our global stories, the Iranian Foreign Ministry has said the removal of U.S. sanctions remains Iran's principal demand in the negotiations. The ministry reiterated that if U.S. sanctions on Iran are based on concerns about Iran's peaceful nuclear program, those concerns can be addressed and that both sides will continue to discuss the framework for an agreement and clarify their respective positions.
تحریم هایی که علیه جمهوری اسلامی ایران اعمال شده طی چند دهه گذشته جملگی ناموجه، غیرقانونی و ظالمانه بوده. از این جهت ما تفاوتی بین تحریم هایی که با عناوین و بهانه‌های مختلف علیه ما اعمال شده قائل نیستیم. بنابراین طبیعی است که مطالبه اساسی ما در هر مذاکره‌ای برداشتن تحریم های غیرقانونی و ظالمانه است.
Now that story takes us straight to the business segment.
Captain Wally J's about to take you to boot camp.
It's the riveting science and tech show that keeps you up to date with the hottest gizmos on the block and revealing the illustrious and innovative visionaries in Zimbabwe. So much to see, you'll keep swiping.
This cherry red beauty is the Dairy Auto M7 mini electric car.
They've designed our brute force incubator board.
Look at what we've got here.
Solar powered scarecrow was part of the project that I was supposed to complete.
Catch Swipe every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294. Get the picture?
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Harare. Tune into the beat.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, your source for news, business, sports,
fashion, and more.
Experience the pulse of Harare's culture and lifestyle.
Capitalk 100.4 FM, Harare's top radio station.
Join the conversation with Zimbabwe's top personalities.
Subscribe now for fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's heartbeat.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play.
The one story where you can't get out of your head. Wakatarisa munhu so Erika like where you are sitting. Ndozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako yo afro chakuti ndo music manje no Zimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti Chindevere kana mumwe mutaure muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe. Ndiwo rupawo rwako. Ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erika Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
Zimbabwe is pursuing the development of high-growth industrial subsectors such as pharmaceuticals and battery manufacture as part of its broader strategy to industrialize the economy and position itself competitively in regional and global value chains. This strategic push is underpinned by the country's desire to diversify its economic base, reduce import dependency, stimulate job creation, and enhance export earnings. And speaking at the ZITF, the Minister of Industry and Commerce said the focus on pharmaceuticals and battery manufacturing aligns with global trends and domestic needs, offering a unique opportunity to harness local resources, talent, and strategic partnerships.
While we continue to strengthen and resuscitate our traditional industries, we are systematically developing high-potential growth sectors, including pharmaceuticals, lithium battery manufacturing, leather, textile production, and steel fabrication, among others. This diversified industrial base will make our economy more resilient to external shocks while creating multiple growth points across the country. Our small and medium enterprises represent the backbone of this industrial transformation. Through deliberate policies, we must create strong linkages between large industries and SMEs, ensuring that the benefits of industrialization are widely shared across the economy.
And Minister Ndlovu also said the launch of the Industrial Development Fund will help bridge the financing gap in Zimbabwe.
Now I can go back to my speech. We realize the importance of affordable financing to support our industry, and we acknowledge that the current lending rates in our financial systems are way too high to support the productive sector. I'm grateful to His Excellency the President, through our Minister of Finance, for launching today the Industrial Development Fund. This is a step in the right direction, and through the Venture Capital Fund, details will be availed on how to access the funding. This fund shall revolve, and I'm happy that Treasury have committed to replenish or to recapitalize this fund on an annual basis, which will see the fund grow. I am also hoping that the fund will be able to crowd in private sector funding, but to do so, we'll have to demonstrate that the fund is also performing well.
Now, Mashonaland Holdings Limited has declared a final dividend of $230,000, equivalent to 0.0136 cents per share for the financial year ending 31 December 2024. The dividend will be paid on 30 May 2025 to shareholders registered by 23 May 2025. And the last date to trade come dividend is 21 May 2025, and the ex-dividend date is 22 May 2025. Shareholders are required to submit their foreign currency banking details to ZB Transfer Secretaries for payment processing. And speaking to ZTN Prime, a financial analyst, Desire Muchipisi, said the decision to pay dividend in US dollars and request shareholders to provide foreign currency details is a strategic move in Zimbabwe's volatile monetary environment.
So the decision to pay dividends in US dollars and request shareholders to provide foreign currency banking details really is a strategic move in Zimbabwe's volatile monetary environment. With the ZiG having been devalued in the past, business and investors face challenges in preserving value. So by distributing dividends in a stable currency, Mashonaland Holdings offers its investors protection against local currency fluctuations and enhancing the attractiveness of its shares. And this approach not only safeguards investor returns, but also aligns with the broader trend of Zimbabwean companies adopting US dollar transitions to mitigate exchange rate risk.
Now, as gold prices rally towards unprecedented levels, Padenga Holdings Limited is leveraging targeted capital expenditure initiatives to fortify its mining operations, aiming to capitalize on bullish gold price projections. The firm's aggressive investments in underground expansion, renewable energy, and resource exploration position it to harness rising gold prices while mitigating risks associated with market volatility. As part of its key capex initiatives, Padenga has invested $44 million since 2022 in developing the Pigstone underground mine, with $13 million allocated for 2025 alone. And still on business, South Africa's coalition government appears likely to remain intact after the National Treasury abandoned a divisive plan to raise taxes and agreed to revise the budget. The Treasury in February proposed hiking the value-added tax rate by 2% points to 17% over 2 years, sparking an outcry, and the proposed increase was halved 3 weeks later. But the Democratic Alliance, DA, the second biggest party in the administration, remained opposed to the move and challenged it in court, sparking a fight with the larger African National Congress. Now, Nissan Motor Co. said it will post a net loss of as much as 750 billion Japanese yen, that's about $5.3 billion for the fiscal year that ended in March, as restructuring charges weigh on the struggling Japanese car maker that's seeking a turnaround. With an aging lineup, Nissan has been discounting its cars in order to avoid building up inventory, eroding profits. And analysts were projecting on average a loss of 112 billion Japanese yen, which itself was worse than Nissan's prior outlook for a deficit of 80 billion Japanese yen. Now, when we return, we'll give you an update on what's happening with Quaker United.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J.
Put your seatbelt on.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on City and Prime, DSTV channel 294. In a world where music transcends boundaries, where rhythm and melody unite the hearts of people, comes a show that celebrates the power of music like never before. Get ready to dive into a sonic journey that will leave you mesmerized. And yearning for more. Welcome to the captivating world of Z Vibes. Vibe to it, baby.
Didn't graduate? I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. You just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoilt.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Quaker United Chairman Francis Tavagaza has pleaded for financial assistance to help the club fulfill its league obligations. Tavagaza says the club needs between $40,000 to $50,000 per month to run. He added that the club is open to any kind of assistance from well-wishers and sponsors. Meanwhile, the Premier Soccer League has summoned Kwekwe United to appear before its disciplinary committee following the newly promoted side's failure to fulfill their matchday 7 fixture against Herentals at Bata Stadium on Easter Monday. Kwekwe players refused to travel for the match over unpaid salaries, forcing the abandonment of the match. The club has now been charged with 2 misconduct charges, firstly for failing to fulfill the fixture, and secondly, bringing the league and its sponsors into disrepute. The disciplinary hearing will be held on the 5th of May at the PSL offices. And still on sport, second-placed Simbabora welcome log leaders Moors to Wadzanai in what is a top-of-the-table clash. The 2024 champions have been enjoying a good run of form lately as they have won 4 games on the bounce, and head coach Joe Lupahla couldn't be happier.
The progress has been good. Always the understanding the tactics, how we wanted to play. At the end of the day, what's helping us is that they are also correcting the results. That has made it a little bit easier. But football being football, it's a pressure game, and pressure always brings out the best in both the players and us.
Lupahla says he is delighted by how the side has fared so far, despite taking over the reins this year, and called on his charges to remain grounded as the season progresses.
Sometimes when the results are not coming, you have this doubt, you end up doubting yourself, am I cut out for this? But the good thing is that I think apart from the Dynamo's game, I still feel we played very bad, not deserve to win. All these other games that we have played, the boys have applied themselves very well. We have deserved to win these games. There's not even one game that we have won, and I'm like, no, they'll be lucky. Deserved to win the game. We dominated most of these games, and I'm saying we are not yet where I want these boys to be. We are not yet where we want them to be, but the performances have been impressive. But we have to remain calm, our feet on the ground, because football can happen at any time. So we have another game, mammoth of a game this week.
Parentals look set to get 3 points from their abandoned game against Kwekwe United if precedent is anything to go by. Today, PSL confirmed that Kwekwe United have been summoned by the disciplinary committee for failure to fulfill the match. Meanwhile, head coach Celestino Paul Benza hopes for better fortunes as his side welcome Greenfield to the capital this Friday.
Hopefully we're going to be able to make it this time because we haven't been picking 3 points since day one where we managed to win against T1. So the preparations have been going on very well and we are ready to go and we really need the 3 points this time. We've always been working very hard to try and encourage the boys to try and convert the chances they get because we always create a lot of chances but we've not been able to bury those chances, but we've always been working with these boys and tomorrow is supposed to be a different ball game. We're supposed to bury the chances.
Now, Benza believes that they have done all they can in preparation of their next home game and are ready for the bigger challenge that awaits them.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all because if you look at the difference that we have, the points difference between us and the teams that are in the top 4, it's not a lot. So it's only a matter of 2 games. So I'm not worried. But what we need now to do is to try and start to pick up the 3 points so that at least we are going to be left behind in a big margin. Being at home, obviously, we have the supporters, we have the executive, we have everyone now who is rallying behind us. So we expect us to get the 3 points, especially being at home and at Faro Stadium. So it's a bigger challenge for us, but we are ready to take that challenge and impress those, impress our supporters and impress our stakeholders.
And that's a wrap on Newsplus this Thursday evening with me, Wadanai Sansole. But before we let you go, we'll give you a recap of our top stories this evening. Mozambican President Daniel Chapo has arrived in the country ahead of the official opening of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair this Friday. It's the 4th day at the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, and Vice President Kemba Mohadi had an engagement with stakeholders to enhance intra-Africa trade. In our Crime Watch, we gave you a story of an armed robber who was slapped with a lengthy sentence after he once escaped from prison officers' custody, movie style. And in sport, Premiership newsboys Kwekwe United are pleading for financial assistance after finding the going tough in the top flight league. They have since been summoned by the PSL after failing to fulfill a fixture. Good night from myself and the crew behind the scenes. We leave you watching The Chase.